All right, so we are at day two, and I believe most of you already have attended the previous session, which was actually a demo plus day one. So, if somehow any one of you have not attended the previous one, that's not a problem. I will be not merging the previous and today as well, including just covering up in order to just if you just missed something. So let's start with today topic, and these are the topic that we are going to discuss in today's session. So basically, we will be just quickly setting up and installing the JMeter. We'll talk about performance versus functional, about life cycle of performance testing, and what role a performance tester holds. We'll talk about that aspect as well. And since we are just we are learning about JMeter, so we'll take this entire discussion in terms of JMeter. So let's get it started with the very first one, JMeter setup and installation. Just a minute. All right. Okay, so the setup and installation for JMeter is quite easy, and actually there is no such setup kind of things, but there are pre-requirement in order to let JMeter run in your system. The first thing is to have JRE, Java Runtime Environment, or JDK, Java Development Kit, which actually includes JRE. So either of JRE or JDK you should be having set up in your system as a pre-requirement. So I think setting up JRE and JDK is not difficult, and I believe that most of you already have on a JRE or JDK setup in your system. So in case you are actually not sure about JRE and JDK setup, you can get into your command prompt. If you are on Windows machine, get into the CMD and just type Java-version. So um, what happens if Java is properly set up in your system? So basically the path variable is already in place, and if you just type Java-version, you will get the related information of Java, that currently in my system Java version 15.0.1 is actually installed. All right, so this is what the only requirement in order to run JMeter in your system. And if JRE is set up, it doesn't matter if it's a Windows machine or Linux machine or Mac machine, you can run JMeter on that machine as well, right? So as a part of this tutorial, I will just referring this setup as a Windows machine. But in case if someone has a Linux machine or Mac machine and have difficulty in setting up JRE or JDK, I can help in that as well. So what happens actually? So in order to install JRE or JDK, I would say that go for JDK installation. That's the recommendation I would say, because in coming session I will be going to share a local application which is JPET store, that will be for your practical, which actually requires JDK. so, so I would recommend that install and set up JDK in your system. I'm not going to get into the this JDK setup in detail, but if you need any help, there is a video available on YouTube, which is actually posted by me, so you can get into YouTube and you can type for PerfTesting. So there is a problem that one of the attendee is facing, that uh, no audio at their end. So I'm not sure if it's a problem with everyone or it's something for a specific person. So anyone can confirm? Okay, so I think there is a network fluctuation that is happening, but I think it should not be an every time, and it's actually not a complete audio problem. So I would say that if it seems the problem with that person only, so just check your audio setting actually if everything is set up for your GoToMeeting or not. All right, so in order to set up JDK, what you can do, you can just search for PerfTesting, and this is what my channel is actually. I do not post a lot of video there, but there is a video which is how to set up JDK 15 in Windows 10 machine. So you can refer this video if you face any difficulty. So it's a detailed video on how to set up JDK with related path details, downloads, and all. So you can refer this one. All right, and if you already have JRE or JDK setup, I just told you that how you can just make sure that the Java is actually running in your system or not. All right, just allow me a minute. I think evening session most of the time just make this problem about network connections. Okay, so if we are good with the JDK and JRE setup part, what we can do, we can simply download JMeter and then run the JMeter. So as I told you that it's that doesn't matter that on what platform, basically on what operating system you are, you can run the JMeter over there. All right, so what you need to do, just go to the Google, type JMeter download this one, just click on this link jmeter.apache.org, and here is the download section actually, and the current version is 5.4.1, which requires Java 8 plus. That's fine. So you need to get into the binary section, and you need to download this zip one, Apache JMeter 5.4.1.zip. Once you download it, keep it at any place in your system. uh, just move out from download to any other location, or let it be in download section as well. So that's not a problem. So in my case, I have just downloaded this zip and I moved to this another folder. And what you need to do is just to extract this folder. Once you extract this folder, you will be getting this folder. So Apache JMeter 5.4.1, just get into this one. And here are subfolders like binaries, documents, extra, libraries, license, and others. So you need to get into binary. And on Windows machines, there is a file which is called jmeter.bat. All right, just a minute. I'm getting continuous complaint about my audio quality. So let me check. Just allow me a minute. All right, so I just switched my network, and I think and I believe that it should be fine now. All right, guys, thank you. All right, so as I told you, once you download your JMeter, just extract that and get into the bin folder. And inside bin, you will be getting jmeter.bat, which is the actually batch file. You need to just double click on Windows machine. And if you are on Mac or on Linux, you need to get into that path through the terminal and simply execute jmeter.sh. And I believe that you should be already aware of executing sh file with dot slash jmeter.sh, right? So get it being and at that location through your terminal. So once you execute that on Linux or on Windows or on Mac machine, you will be getting the similar pop-up which we are going to get just on clicking jmeter.bat. So let me just double click on it. So if your Java was set up properly, basically the environment variable was set up properly, you will be getting this information message that do not use GUI mode for load testing, and for load testing you should be using actually non-GUI mode and related details. But just ignore this one, do not close it, because once you close, the JMeter will also be terminated. But let this command prompt running. Right, so here is the JMeter. So double click on it, and if you look at the version 5.4.1, which is one just we just downloaded and just started it. All right, so this is 5.4.1, and in my previous session as well, I told you that um, you can change the look and feel by getting into the option menu and through look and feel. So by default, you will not be getting these windows, but you will be getting some high contrast or something um, dark theme kind of thing. So you can adjust the theme as per your um, whatever you like. So there is a actually confirmation that one of the attendees is having 5.1.1. So is that fine? Um, I think no, because 5.4.1 have few of the updates, and in my previous session I found that um, just a script just created on 5.4.1 does not have a backward compatibility. So I would suggest it's not a challenge to upgrade JMeter. So I would just recommend that go for latest version 5.4.1, because in a situation you might get a problem with the backward compatibility. Okay, so here's the JMeter 5.4.1. So we'll talk about the GUI and related options. We'll create a quick script in order to just demonstrate that how a script actually works in JMeter. But before that, few of the topics to cover. Um, all right, so there is a actually question from um, that running JMeter from Bash actually. So first thing, if you are running on if you want to run this JMeter on your Linux machine, first thing you need to ensure that JDK or JR is set up there or not. So the similar concept applies there, that you need to first look for the Java version, or basically the path that is correctly set up or not. And if Java is actually set up, so it's not a problem to run or execute this sh file from the terminal. So from the terminal, what you can do, you can just change the directory cd to the path where your JMeter is extracted. You can just use this zip actually. So you can just download this zip one and extract that to any location in your Linux machine or in your Mac machine, and you need to go to the this path through the terminal, and what you need to do, you need to simply execute that. So if you are at the path inside bin, you need to just run this command dot slash, and this is the file jmeter.sh. So just for demonstration, you can just run this command. And once you hit enter, the similar thing will apply. So this jmeter.sh will look for the Java, will look for the path, and it will find the related Java installed in your system, and then you will be getting this UI. Further, if you are having any difficulty, you can connect me post this session, that I can help you if you are just having some another problem. All right. All right, guys. So I would say that this first um, today's session and tomorrow's session would be a bit covering some theory part in order to build your concept. And in the later sessions, we will be more talking, getting into more practical approaches. But before that, there are a few concepts which are important to learn before getting into those practical details. So for that, let's move to this another point, which is performance versus functional testing. All right, so one of the important aspect to understand that um, what actually performance testing is and how it is different from functional one. So do remember that performance is actually called non-functional, right? Because it's not functional. So what functional is, um, so let's understand the functional first, and once we clear about the functional testing, so we can easily describe about non-functional testing. So what functional testing is, if there is an application, and I would say that let me take an example of all right, Amazon.in. All right, so this is the website, and there are a lot of functionalities here. Here is the search box, here is the cart, right? Here is the sign in related details, and other links are there. So here's the search box, and if I type something here, let's say I type laptops, right? So, and once I hit enter, so the functionality of this search box is to search related to laptops. So what happened, there are a lot of laptops appear on the screen, which actually fulfills the functionality of this search box. And um, it's a kind of functional validation that if I search for laptop inside my search box, the search results are returned and my functionality is actually working. All right, and I would say that the functionality is not working if there is no such laptop returned, or something else are returned in place of laptop, like jeans or shirts are returned. But here laptop are returned in my results, I would say that my functionality is working fine. So functionality is something that what the objective of any functionality is getting fulfilled or not, right? So that's the functional validation, and this is what we do in term of manual or automation, not actually automation, but in Selenium validation, that we look for the functionality that if hitting search icon by typing some keyword, the actually search appears or not, right? And apart from this functionality, there are different aspects of this search functionality, that if I hit the laptop inside this search box, are my search appearing, but how many time it's actually taking, right? And another point, that if laptop is being searched by hundred of thousand of users at a single point of time, so at that point of time my search functionality is working expected or not, right? So the last 2 points, like in how many time my search result was returned, and if there are 100 or 1000 of users just searching for the product, then at that point of time my search functionality is working or not, is something non-functional, right? So the things which are actually not functional, we categorize those into non-functional. So what are the other things comes into non-functional? So if I talk about non-functional, and we call these things non-functional characteristics. So responsiveness, number of users handled, stability. So I would another one I would add another one point, stability. So what you can refer here, that if there are 100 or 1000 of users hitting laptop for a longer period of time, for 1 hour or for 2 hour duration, or even for more than that, so that is the stability actually. So in that situation my system is stable or not, right? The search are going to return immediately, or it takes a lot of time, or even it's not returned. Basically it's broken kind of thing. So that's stability, right? So um, say stability is one of the another non-functional characteristics. Again, errors. So basically the percentage of errors. So if there are 100 users repeating those activities multiple time, so how many percentage of error I am getting? So error in term that might be the results are not properly returned, so partial response is returned kind of thing. So all those things comes into non-functional characteristics, right? And this is what non-functional testing is. So basically we do non-functional testing or the performance testing in order to determine these non-functional characteristics, and this is how we actually differentiate between functional and non-functional testing. Again, um, if we just talk about non-functional testing, there are different kind of non-functional testing as well. So performance testing is one of the subset of this non-functional testing. Again, there is another non-functional testing which is called security testing, is also a subset of this non-functional testing. But in most of the cases we refer non-functional, so it's a general acceptance that when we refer non-functional testing we generally refer that as a performance testing, and here non-functional we are referring performance testing, right? Okay, so any question so far? All right, so if we are good, I would just move to the another point. What is performance testing? And I believe that this is well covered in previous session as well. So basically performance testing is done to determine the non-functional characteristics of any system. And now you aware about this non-functional characteristic like responsiveness, number of users, stability, error percentage, and few other non-functional characteristics as well, that hits per second or request per second. All right, so if I now again define the performance testing definition, so going to just repeat the performance testing definition. So a performance testing is done in order to determine the non-functional characteristics of application at particular load, right? So particular load in the sense we are going to determine the non-functional characteristics like responsiveness, stability, error, and request per second with some uses of load like 100 users of load, 1000 users of load, right? So that kind of things. Okay, so this is what actually about performance testing. All right, so okay, so there is a question that GUI testing falls under. All right, so here we are going to do performance testing of application, but again, performance testing can be done for any application in at two end actually. One is the at the GUI end and one is the back end. So here we are dealing with the application of the performance, and it's going to be the back end, not the front end. Okay, so we are going to learn about performance testing of application, and we are looking at the back end performance. Again, there is a GUI testing kind of things which is also a part of performance, that running or actually loading a page with 100 users or 1000 users at the browser end, at GUI end, how much it takes time and what are the things we are getting. That also a part of performance testing, but that is something different. In general, we do not deal with performance testing at a GUI level, at a UI level, but we deal with a backend server or the direct application or server level, right? So the question is something like GUI comes under, and again I would say that GUI actually comes in a different testing, like in manual also GUI comes, in automation also GUI comes, in automation in the sense in functional, right? In functional validation GUI comes, and even in performance GUI also comes, but uh, performance of GUI is something different, and here we are going to deal with the performance of the backend system. All right, so there is a question about stress testing. I would say that we will be moving to the another part, which is which will be covered under type of performance testing. All right, so nice questions so far. Keep posting. Now let's talk about the life cycle of performance testing. Right. So what are the phases a performance testing covers, or actually a life cycle of performance testing? So the initial phase is to be going to be the requirement document, which is called NFR document. So what actually this NFR is? NFR stands for non-functional requirement. Just allow me a minute. All right. So this NFR, or actually non-functional requirement document, contains these non-functional characteristics. So before we start the performance testing of application in a well-defined system, or in an organization where there is a process followed for performance testing, so in that you will be getting a document which is called non-functional requirement document, and that document will containing the details of performance testing that you have to perform. So if I take example of one of the use case, so basically use cases should be mentioned in NFR document. So if I take one of the example of a use case which is mentioned under NFR, that run a performance test for 100 users, all right, and look for the number of run a performance test for 100 users for login functionality, and look for the percentage of login errors. So this is one of the example which should be there in NFR document. So based on that requirement, you should be designing your performance test. So for your application, you should be covering the login functionality by recording a script, getting into the home page, and then login into the application by providing valid user password. And you should be running that test for 100 users, which is actually mentioned in the NFR document. Again, another requirement might be mentioned in the NFR document, that run a performance test um, for 100 users load, and ensure that responsiveness of the application should be under 2 seconds. So such kind of requirement you will be getting into NFR document, or actually the requirement document, which comes at the first phase of performance lifecycle. All right, and again, the next point is test strategy. So this test strategy is actually derived from this NFR document itself. As I told you that if there is a requirement to run 100 users test for login functionality, um, for login functionality, and looking for the percentage of error. So test strategy should include that for how long I should run, right? For 1 hour duration, for 2 hour duration, all right, and actually what should be the ramp up period, right, and few other points which is actually which actually can be derived from this requirement document. So this requirement document will be containing a few other information as well, right? And for your easy understanding, I will be sharing with you a requirement document as well, that how actually a requirement document looks like, and what other the different use cases might mention there in requirement document. So we derive the test strategy from this document, and again, the another next point is the test design, right? So Test design actually includes the scripting and other other details as well, like creating recording your pages, um, providing users IDs and password into the into the login page, parameterizing those user ID passwords with the different number of users in order to make it a data driven testing. So that all scripting and designing related things comes under test designing. And once we are done with the test design, we move to the next phase, which is actually the execution or the running performance test phase. Once we are done with the performance test, we look for the result. Basically, we look for the things we have done. Basically, we have an objective here from this NFR document that running 100 users test for login functionality and looking for the percentage of error. So we look for those things under analysis, and then we put our analysis into a report and publish those things to the stakeholders. So these things actually covers the life cycle of performance testing. And on this, we have a question here that can I plan for perf testing if I don't have NFR document? So the question from Nilesh, yes, obviously we can plan for a perf test. So initially you should be asking for the NFR document from where the requirement is coming. So basically, you are a performance tester in any of the industry, so you will be given a requirement. So might be you will be asked for performance test either from the developer end or from the architect end, or from wherever the requirement comes from. So you can ask that person about the NFR document. And as I told you that in most of the cases, if there is no such um, process has been defined, or a system has been defined for these things, you might not get the NFR document, at, which you should not be getting. So in that case, you should be um, continue with the performance testing, but you should actually notify the team, or you should actually gather the information that what kind of testing, what functionality you have to cover, right? So you can actually ask the questions related to your performance test, that for how many users we should run our performance test, and what functionality you have to cover, and few related things, because you should be actually clear on the objective of your performance test, that through the performance run what actually you are going to get. So do note that before planning for any performance test, you should be having an objective clear, that through that run what thing you are going to obtain. As I told you that there might be a lot of use cases of any of the application, and you cannot actually cover uh, most of you actually you cannot cover all of the cases, and for each of the use case you need to run a separate performance test. So each performance test should be having an objective. All right, so another question, that if there is an existing application running in the organization and I want to do perf test, is there any standard? All right, so actually, um, there is no such standard which actually globally defines a performance standard for application. Actually, the standards is defined by the architect or by the developer, which are the senior developers or the senior architect in your organization. So what happens that any of the application which is already running, that should be having a expected workload, right? And some expected standards as per the complexity of the application, right? So if there is a lightweight application, that might be having a good responsiveness, all right? But if the application which is a complex application that computes and that actually do a lot of background works, these standards actually differ. So there is no such defined standard, and this standard differs as per the type of applications are there. So you can take help on the performance standard of the application through the architect or through the senior developers. And again, there should be expected what I say that there should be expected workload defined for any of the application. So if I holds an application and I am the owner of the application, and if I deploy that application to the production, I should be well aware that how many initial traffic or load I am going to expect, right? So the standards actually comes from that area. So if I would say that if there is no such anything defined that what is the workload, how many number of users you are going to bear, what should be the responsiveness of your application, then you might be the one person that should be defining those things. So I will give you an idea that in that situation how you can proceed and how you can actually define some standards of your application. So you actually cannot define, but you can let the people know, or you can know that this is what my application can sustain in terms of responsiveness or in terms of number of users. All right, so yes, the confirmation is that we should be knowing the expected workload. Yeah, obviously. So this is where the NFR documents comes into picture, and this saves us. Actually, this is the safe side of performance tester. You should be having the NFR that the requirement is actually coming from the management or from the architect or senior developer, and you are just going to follow that things. So that will actually help doing your performance testing. Otherwise there are n number of cases you can form, then in what way you should proceed, right? So there is a distraction. So you should be having the requirement first and the objective of your performance testing. So let's move to the another point, role of performance tester. So being a performance tester, you should be holding these responsibilities, the scripting, or I would say that what are the phases that a performance life cycle covers. You should be having all those responsibilities. So all these phases responsibilities you should be having, the role you should be having. So scripting, you should be um, create a script for your application for different flows or different paths. So scripting you should be holding. Test data you should prepare before running a test. Let's say that I'm going to validate a login functionality as given in the requirement document, that perform a login test, performance test for 100 users for login functionality. So better to have different 100 dummy users login account um, as a test data that can be created, or that can be um, created with the help of DBA, or you can just create another script in order to create sign up for 100 users, and then you can use those users as a part of login of your script. So those kind of preparation, test data preparations, um, which we actually put into a performance script as the input part, that comes under test data. And this test data preparation also an important part of a performance test engineer. So the question is that what language this scripting contains. So I would say that initially you should not be require any kind of language knowledge, because performance script in JMeter is actually a kind of the available things you need to just add with the help of just knowledge that what element you need in order to create a performance script. So there's a thread group which helps us creating thread, which you can add by right clicking, and a lot of things are available on just right click and just by mouse click. But a basic knowledge on Java will be required. And there are additional language support, like JavaScript is there, all right, and Groovy is there. So if you have a basic knowledge on those language, you can actually create a good script in JMeter. All right, so there's a question from Manish. I will take it later, just after a few moments. So after test data, the role also includes maintaining this script. So a script update and maintenance, if there is some functionality change happen and there has been some something you need to update, you need to update in the script as well, and you need to keep your script updated as per the latest releases. And then use case design, performance run, results, and publish, all those stuffs that we have already discussed. All right, so let's quickly talk about role of JMeter in performance testing, or actually in performance lifecycle, I would say. Okay, so how JMeter is going to help us? Because till now we are not talking about the tool, but about the general aspects or general concepts of the performance testing. But now here JMeter comes into picture. So JMeter is actually a tool, and in general we refer this tool as a load generator, but it's not only the load generator. So what actually mean the load generator is that we can generate load or simulate load or the workload on the target application with the help of this JMeter. But it's not only the load generation thing that we are going to generate only load through this JMeter, but it's going to help uh, in doing performance testing for all performance lifecycle phases. So here, not actually all, but here test designing, execution, analysis, report, and publishing. So these are the main part that actually JMeter can help you in that. So if I talk about the test design, so what actually this test design includes, that is scripting, right? Parameterization, correlation, and debugging of a script, repeating the script, looking for the script related errors. So JMeter is actually a fully IDE that helps us in almost all of the phases of performance lifecycle, from script designing to test execution, analysis, and generating report. So this JMeter is actually we are going to use in order to create our performance script, running those script and understanding all other performance terms with in term of this JMeter tool. Okay, so any other question you do have on this JMeter? And I think we have already talked about features and benefits of JMeter. This JMeter is actually a Java based tool, which is a pure Java based application. So it's a platform independent, right? So you can run this JMeter on any of the platform, either Mac, Linux, and other OS as well, where the Java is the only requirement. You should be having Java only running there. Again, if you have created a JMeter script, you can simply copy that script. So a JMeter script ends with the extension .jmx. So you can let's say I have created a script, my first test plan .jmx. So it doesn't matter, I have created this script on my Windows PC, but I can save this script and I can just copy this script on my Linux machine, and their JMeter is running, and I can simply open that script there as well. Even that applies to Mac as well. So a lot of the easy things that actually can be done in term of this JMeter scripting and JMeter tool. So most of the things are available on GUI, which helps us creating a good performance test plan in quick time. Now let's move on the type of performance testing. But before that, let me quickly have a question. That question is from Manish. Hmm. Just a minute. So yes, actually, the question is something like that: how we can actually look for the slowness of the application, or find out a point where my application performs um, some slowness or so slowness, and then its performance is degraded. So actually, it's a good post. Actually, it's not actually a question, but it's a confirmation that of what we can do, that can start a load test with a certain load on sampling basis, let's say for 50 users per or users or thread, and then gradually keep increasing the load by 25 users in each run, and follow this approach up to 100 or 150 users till we reach a point where applications shows slowness. It's a good point. Actually, this kind of testing is called actually incremental testing, or you you can do that testing, which is actually incremental testing. What we do in such kind of testing, if we initially do not know the expected workload, or do not know the a requirement of the application, so we start in that way. We start with the initial load, or a easy load, which can be easily accepted by the application, and at that point of time the responsiveness is also good of the application. So what we do, we keep increasing the workload of the application at the application. So initially we were 25 users, as you just mentioned. Then at certain point of time, we keep increasing the number of users. So it's not the thing that you just complete that test and then again repeat another test with the increased number of users, and if you do not get your breakpoint, you just stop that test. So we can actually include all those users increment into a single run. We can design a scenario, a use case where at where with the time we can increase the number of users, and we can continue monitoring the responsiveness or the number of errors per second. That kind of thing we can continue monitor, and at a certain point of time we will reach a workload where my application will definitely show some slowness. So that's the approach through which we can find the breakpoint, or the slow point, or the peak point of the application. All right, so let me talk about type of performance testing, and we have already discussed about that as well. But let me quickly summarize that. So, excuse me. So, if we talk about the load testing, all right, and I think initially, if you do not know the standard workload of your application, it will be hard to define this load testing and stress testing. So let me do one thing. Just a minute. All right. So let's say I have some benchmark, or some standard of my of the performance of my application. So if this is my application, so I have some standard like 80 users and 2-second responsiveness. All right. So what this means is that this application is actually handling 80 users load with a responsiveness of 2 seconds. So this is what the standard of my application, and we verify this standard by running a performance test for 80 users, and we look for the responsiveness, that if that the responsiveness is 2 seconds or within 2 seconds or not, right? but this is not the maximum workload that my application can handle, but my application can handle beyond this. My application is able to handle 120 users load, and at that users load my application actually is performing at 3.5 second, right? So basically these numbers you have to find out, right, by doing a performance test. So how these number becomes a standard for this application? Actually this becomes the standard as per the NFR, or as per the standard you agreed. So let's say that the NFR says that the 2-second response time is accepted and the 80 users are accepted. So this is actually a kind of a standard that is accepted as a load test for my application. So this actually becomes a standard workload for your application. But again, um, your application can sustain up to 120 users, and at that point it can respond up to 3.5 second. So this is what the actually peak capacity or the max capacity, and this becomes the standard capacity, which is actually a standard defined in NFR, or this is what the general workload you have actually agreed for your application. All right, so now we have two separate things. One is the standard workload and one is the peak workload or the maximum workload. All right, so as I told you that performance test is actually a process, a repeated process that we repeat over time, each after each release or at a certain interval, let's say each week, right, each on each feature changes, on each 15 days or each month. So whatever frequency you have for your application, so we do that, right? So now here we have standard and max or peak load. So if I run a performance test for these 120 users, right, and if my application response time becomes under 3.5 second or up to 3.5 second, so running with these 120 users, that performance test becomes the stress testing. So I would say that performance testing as a stress testing. So stress testing or load testing is actually nothing, but it's actually characterized or differentiated as per the workload of your application. So running with 120 users becomes a stress testing, because we are actually running a stress test for my application. So what actually stress test? That it's a max or peak capacity of my application. And on the other hand, running with a standard load with 80 users, so if I run a 80 users test, so that becomes a load test for my application. All right, so load test or stress test actually related to the specific application, right? And that actually load testing becomes the standard workload supported by your application, and where stress testing becomes the max or peak workload supported by your application, right? So this is what a difference between load test and stress test is. I think you should be now clear on this load and stress one. Any question we have, any clarity you need? So there is a question that at what phase we should be doing performance testing. And the other question is that what we are trying to obtain in stress testing? Okay, so the first question, that at what phase we should be doing a performance testing. All right, so um, the performance testing comes just after the QA qualification. So once your developer has done the coding and the developer has done the initial testing or the sanity kind of thing, they have validated the things as at a high level, then the developer handovers the application to the QA. QA qualifies the all functional aspects, and after that you are the person responsible for doing performance tests. So always take a code which is qualified by QA, and the qualified QA code are a performance candidate. Once performance testing is done, that code is qualified, then that can be deployed to customer uses or to the production. So performance testing comes after QA and before production. The next question is that what we are trying to just obtain through this stress test. That's a good question. So stress test actually gives you a confidence that mm, at what is the maximum capacity or peak capacity of my application, and how many number of users actually can be handled by my application, or what is the responsiveness of my application at at the peak capacity of my application, right? So you should be aware that this is what the maximum capacity, and if somehow we are going to get more workload on my application, this might be a problem, or the application might be broken. So you must be prepared for future load. If the expected workload is going let's say for beyond 120, then you should be prepared for more infrastructure kind of things. Okay, so any other question I do have? Yes, so it's about breakpoint. Yes, exactly. Okay, so now the another testing type is the endurance test. So the endurance is something that we do endurance test in order to ensure that my application sustains for a longer duration, and the workload, which is a standard workload that we put under load testing, we convert the duration of our load testing. So generally what we do a load test, load or stress test for 2 hours, 4 hours. So this is what the standard duration. In most of the cases I do it for 1 hour as well. So 1 hour, 2 hour, or maximum it's 4 hour. I would say that this 4 hour is also not included as a part of performance testing, as a part of load or stress testing. So in most of the cases you will find the duration of load and stress testing for 1 hour, 2 hours, right? And endurance test is done for a longer duration, for 12 hours, 8 hours, even for 24 hours as well, even more than that, right? So endurance testing is done for a longer period of time at a load, at a standard load, and this gives us the confidence that how stable my application is, that how long my application can sustain that load, because that might be a situation that your application is able to handle a load testing for 1 or 2 hours, but it might not be able to handle for 10 hour or for 12 hour because of other issues. So endurance testing is done in that situation. Again, I spike testing, I think you also aware of that, but a quick overview. So spike testing is something that forms a sudden workload on the application. So in in general, what type of workload we get, that there are 100 users continue running, 101, 103, 104, 105. So that that's the number of users that actually varies during your workload. But assume that suddenly after 1 second or after 2 second of time, there are 200 users. So sudden 100 number of 100 users increase as a workload. So how those 100 users are being handled by your application. So a sudden workload might be a problem for your application, and in order to look at the behavior of your application at a sudden load, we do spike testing. So what we do in spike testing, we simulate that kind of workload, that there are very less number of users are running, let's say 2 or 3 users are running, and suddenly there is a high number of users get into your system. Let's say for say 100 users suddenly start getting into your system, hitting home page, login page, and doing other stuffs. So from 5 users to 100 users, a sudden spike. So how those users are going to be handled? So all those users are handled by your system or not? So that kind of testing is considered under spike testing. And this kind of testing is done in order to look at the behavior of a website that actually um, host sales or some offers kind of thing. So if there is a sale or offer is going to be happen on any of the website, that kind of workload is expected. So there is a question from Sonam, that do we need to perform endurance testing every time, unlike load or stress testing, or there is some specific scenarios or use cases for endurance testing? That's a good question. So you should not be performing endurance testing each and every time. And endurance testing is required for an application which is a long running application. So if you think that your application is going to be running mode, and your application generally does not recycle quickly, so endurance testing can be considered, because it's not a quick performance testing cases. Most of the cases you should be ending up load and stress testing only. Endurance testing is sometime can be done, and that depends on the type of application. And I would say that endurance testing is generally done to look for the stability of your application. So if you feel that your application should be stable for that longer period of time without recycle and with that number of users workload, then you should consider endurance testing. Otherwise, it would be fine to go with load and stress. Okay, so what are the topics we are left with? All right, I think most of the theory parts has been covered, but again, if you have any question, just let me know. But by the way, I will be moving to the um, what else? Let's move to the this JMeter GUI, and let me know if you have any question or something that I left out of these topics. So let me have a question from Nilesh. Okay, so the question is that if the project is running on agile mode, then when is the right time to do this testing? If this is the perf testing need to done after each sprint, or should we wait for the final sprint? If the project is running on agile mode, then what's the right time to do performance testing? Okay, so it's a good question that if there is a project on agile mode, so it's a continuous going on things. All right, so first thing you need to identify that each and every time performance testing is not required, right? And the another thing that in most of the cases you are not the person, or you are not the right person approaching each and every developer and asking for the performance testing. So you should be getting a requirement from the developers, or from the architect, or from the team who they are actually introducing something which is actually a performance candidate. So in each sprint, it's not necessary that the changes that are going to happen are performance candidate, right? If there is a requirement coming to you, they are asking for the performance testing, you should be having a question that what are the changes has been gone in the current sprint, and how this can be a performance candidate. So if there is a UI related changes has been done, it's not a performance candidate. But if there has been code improvement related to some login functionality, related to some search functionality, or something you find and you realize that this is the performance candidate and this can impact the responsiveness or number of users handled, that can introduce some areas of errors, so that the code changes coming into the sprint, you can target for performance, right? So obviously, yeah, you should be always getting a requirement from the team, or from the concern a person asking for the performance test. All right, so there is a question from Manish. There is a difference in breakpoint and rain point. Okay, so the rain point is actually a point where which is actually used to now simulate the spike testing. All right, rain point. There is a term used in load runner, which is used to simulate the spike testing, and there is a similar concept in JMeter as well, which you can use in order to simulate that kind of spike testing. While breakpoint is something different. So breakpoint we refer as a peak capacity or the maximum capacity of your application, and beyond that your application is going to be uh, degraded. So your application performance is going to degraded, or your application is actually not going to sustain the workload beyond that point. So that point is a breakpoint. So these are the two very separate things, not to include in that. So there is a um, question that please explain again about GUI comes under functional or non-functional. So as I told you that GUI is a part of both functional and non-functional. So if you are going to do functional through GUI, that's a GUI in term of functional testing. Again, non-functional also comes, so GUI also comes under non-functional. So if you're going to look for the performance of the GUI, so that's comes under non-functional. So it's a GUI actually covers both, under both functional and non-functional. So one more point I would like to just add, that it will be the difference between functional and non-functional. Though you are dealing with the GUI, but if you are dealing with the functional validation, that's a functional. And again, if you are dealing with the non-functional characteristics through the GUI, like looking at the overall load time of your page, so that's a non-functional characteristic. So that's a non-functional kind of thing, which also a part of GUI, and that is how GUI comes under both functional and non-functional. All right. Okay, so keep posting questions if you have any. And here I have just moved to JMeter 5.4. And I believe most of you are already familiar with the UI. So here is the test plan. As I told you that this test plan, actually in a JMeter, you can have a single test plan open, and inside that test plan, you can have various elements. So the simplicity is that you can right click on any of the elements. So let me first delete this test plan. So in order to delete, you can hit the delete button, click remove yes, or you can just right click on this and click just remove. So any of the element, you can just right click and get a lot of details over there. Okay, so initially you should be getting at this test plan with the name of test plan, but you can just rename it to test plan hyphen um, day 2, right? So once you rename it, you need to click somewhere else in order to take this effect. So um, um, once you click somewhere out, it will be renamed to test plan day 2, and related details of this test plan is displayed over here, right? So let me quickly create a simple script or a test plan. So what actually a test plan is, um, it holds the different elements, like there are different elements available. So if I click right and then click add, then thread group, under threads, there is a element called thread group. So this thread group actually provides the number of virtual users or users just we were talking about, that 100 number of users or 120 numbers of users. So those numbers of users we can generate by using this element available under JMeter, which is called thread group. All right, so let me take an example first, and then based on that example and based on that use case, I will be just creating a test plan. So here, let's say that I have to create a performance test plan inside JMeter for a website. Okay, it's not a good website. All right, so this is my website and this is my system. Inside that JMeter is installed, right? So what I have to do, I have to hit this website, and this website will return me the response and the page actually that I'm going to hit, right? So let's hit the Wikipedia. All right, so this Wikipedia page I have to hit, and this Wikipedia page is going to return the response, right? So this is going to be done with the help of this JMeter tool. So this is JMeter. Okay, 5.4.1, right? So this is JMeter, and with the help of JMeter, I'm going to create a test plan through which I'm going to hit the Wikipedia page. So first thing that in order to hit the Wikipedia page, I need a URL of this page, right? Second thing that I need a user or virtual user or user or thread. So thread is actually a term used by this JMeter, and the virtual users or users are the other terms used by another tools. So these virtual users or users or threads, we will be referring these all three things as a similar thing, right? So I'm going to need a thread or the virtual user or user, and this thread is going to uh, pick this URL and hit that, right? So let so once you hit this, so again the response is returned, right? So there are different elements comes into picture in term of this JMeter. First thing that I need this virtual user. So this virtual user I can get with the help of this element called thread group. Again, I need this URL. I have a URL to hit, which is en.wikipedia.org, wikipedia.org. So I have this URL. So I need to put this URL in order to hit that, right? So how can I get this URL? and how I can hit this. So for that, there is another element called sampler. So once I click right on this thread group, add sampler. So there is a sampler called HTTP request. The reason I am putting this HTTP request because the page I am going to hit that supports the protocol HTTP, right? So either HTTP or HTTPS. So any of the secure, either secure protocol or only HTTP protocol that can be achieved with the help of this HTTP request. So this is an element which comes under the sampler. So this is a sampler. So not to confuse about elements and sampler. So element is a set, and this thread group and this sampler are the other controllers, pre-processor, post-processor assertions are the subset. So basically each and everything which we have here can be referred as an element, but these are the different type of elements. So this is a response assertion element, and this comes under category assertion. So similar type, we have a sampler types, and under that different type of samplers, but all these can be referred as an element. So we have a HTTP request which is a sampler, right? Okay, so okay, I got your point, Vinay. We'll keep that. Okay, so here is the HTTP request, and I need to put the URL, which is going to be en.wikipedia.org. Path, I do not have any path, so I'm going to, let me hit this URL first, en.wikipedia.org. Okay, so once I hit this URL, actually it converts, it includes a path as well, which is wiki/mainpage.org. So rather use this path as well. So first thing that we have a protocol S here, I need to hit this page, right? Or completely this page. So protocol is HTTPS. The um, host or IP should be en.wikipedia.org, right? And this path is going to be wiki/main_page. So this is going to be the path portion. Again, I can rename it to main_page. Click somewhere outside. So if I refer you back here, so here now I have a URL put into the sampler, and I have a thread or virtual user which can use this URL in order to hit this website. So now the response will be received through this JMeter. So again, there should be an element which will be in place in order to get this response back. For that, we have a different element which is called the listener. So just right click on this thread group, add listener, view results tree. So there are different elements under listeners, or I would say there are different listeners available, but for now let's add this view results tree. So what listener will do, this thread group will send this single thread to this page. So this sampler will hit that page, and again the response or the data which is returned from this page will be get collected by this listener. So in order to do those things, I need to add three different elements: thread group, sampler, and this listener. Okay, so and now my test plan is simply ready, and what I can do, I can simply run this by just hitting this start, save. You can save it, but for now let's say no. Okay, so what is happening, my test has been started and it is completed under 4 seconds of time. If you just click this main page, you will be getting the related details that what is the load time, which is actually 4.7 seconds. What is the connect time, so in how many a millisecond actually. So these numbers are in milliseconds. So do note that. So my connection was stabilized, or basically the connection was completed with this Wikipedia page under 1490 millisecond. Again, there is a size in bytes, that how many data is returned from that page. And the important point is to look at the response code, which is 200, and the response message is okay. Again, there are different tabs like request, what request we have sent. We have made a get request with a protocol HTTPS with the IP or domain en.wikipedia.org and /wiki/main page. And what we got into response, so this much of data we got into the response from that page. You can change the view from here from text to HTML in order to look at the bit formatted way of that HTML. So this is what kind of page we got in response. All right, so again, there are different listeners available that I can add by getting into thread group, add listener, and then summary report, right? So this is another listener. And if I get back to this thread group actually, so there is a one thread with a loop count of 1. I can increase that loop count to 10 in order to repeat this page 10 times. So get back to view results tree, clear this data by just using this button, clear or clear all. And now repeat the test. Simply run this test. So do remember that this time we have just to increase the loop count to 10. So if you look at the view results tree, one iteration has been completed, and my thread is actually repeating. The second iteration is completed, the third one completed, the fourth is in progress. So in this way, what will happen, this thread group will repeat this for 10 times. Okay, so what is actually happening here? Here's the thread group, and what other requests we do have here are under the scope of this thread group. So this thread group is there, this sampler is there. So apart from this sampler, there can be another sampler as well. So sampler in the sense there, the sampler actually contains the pages. So there can be another pages as well, and whatever pages are there under the scope of this thread group will get performed 10 times, or as per the loop count we are providing. So here, if you look at the view results tree, we have completed 4, 6, 8, 9, and now just completed the final or 10th iteration, and it has taken around 1 minute and 15 seconds of time in order to complete all these 10 iterations. So you got an idea that whatever pages we do have inside this thread group. So if you look at the hierarchy of this sampler and this thread group, so this thread group is a parent, and this is a child. So this sampler or this HTTP request is a child element, and this is the parent element. So whatever things we do have inside this parent, all the childs are going to follow the parent um, changes, or the parent things that we have done here. So if I say that I'm going to specify a thread lifetime, which actually means you can make it infinite. And if I say that I'm going to specify it for 120 seconds, which means for 2 minutes. So what will happen? This page will be repeated for 2 minutes time. And once 2 minutes is completed, rather than iteration, my the test will be marked completed at that point of time. Okay, so is my screen actually reflecting to you, or there's something problem with the screen freeze? Let me reshare. Okay, just confirm if it's reflecting. Okay, guys, thanks for the just informing me. So what I was just discussing about that, here's the thread group where we have one user, and earlier we were having 10 iteration here, and we were not having this duration. So what happened, like we have 10 iterations completed. So basically this page was repeated 10 times. Again, we do have an option of now duration. So what I can do, I can simply run this as a duration, let's say for 120 seconds. So what will happen in that case, if I make it infinite as well, so this duration will take charge. So this infinite will not be infinite, but this duration will be followed. So in that case, 120 second will be a duration for my test. So what will happen, how does that my test will be completed after 120 second, and it's up to the response time of the page that how many iterations can be done under 120 seconds, right? So there are two ways. Either we can define the number of iterations or loop count, or we can define the time of my test or the duration of my test that we were earlier discussing, that run it for um, 1 hour duration or for 2 hour duration. So you can just convert that into seconds and you can put that here. Okay, so for now, let it be for 10 iteration and not for some duration. So now you have the idea about parent and child. So this is a child of this parent element. Again, we can have another page as well. So I can add another sampler HTTP request. I can drag it up, just holding and dragging it up. So if I get back to this Wikipedia, I can click on contents here. So for that, this is the page which is Wikipedia colon content. So what I can do, I can add this page as a part of this test script or this test plan. I can have other pages as well. So let me just quickly define actually concept which is called flow. All right, so what actually flow is? A flow is something that defines some certain number of pages or some certain path of your application. So if I say that I have a place order flow, okay, so it's a general place order flow for any e-commerce application. So what this place order flow should contain, at least launch application, and login application. So login into the system. Okay, search for product, add to bag, checkout, payment information or payment, address and payment, right? And then place order. So this is a place order flow which actually should contain these of the pages. Again, a flow is something that actually defines a use case, or basically defines a coverage of your application. That if I have to cover a account section flow, then the flow should contains the pages like launch the application, login into your system, and then clicking on your account, updating your password, or looking for your orders, and updating address and other related details which should be um, related to your accounts as well, accounts only. So A flow is something that covers or specifies a certain number of pages. So in my case, if I have to cover a flow, we should contain launch the page and click contents. So these actually um, uh, includes a set of pages, a definite set of pages. For that, I'm going to uh, create a script and do performance tests. So do ensure that you have a certain flow to cover, and for that we are going to build our test plan, a performance test, by adding that pages into my performance script. So this is what a simple script is, and let me add this page as well. So what I can do, I can, rather than just let's look at the thing that what we can do here. So let me delete this element, and I can just right click on it and click duplicate, or I can use the shortcut Control Shift C as well. And now rather than saying it main page, I can change it to contents, and I have to update the URL here. So what page I have to put here? So this will be the same, and here I have to put wiki slash Wikipedia colon contents. So just put it here. So now I have two pages here, main page, content. So in a similar way, we should be having different pages under the scope of this thread group, and those pages will be the target pages for my application. So basically, with the help of these pages, hitting these pages, we are going to target my application and generate a workload on my application, and then looking for the responsiveness on or with the number of users handled, or the percentage of error generated on my application. So these are the pages. For now, I have just taken as an example, but for a performance test, you should be having a predefined pages, which should be the under the scope of your performance testing. Okay, so there is a question about hierarchy, about parent and child. So here in JMeter, we have elements hierarchy. So these two elements are at same hierarchy level, and these two elements are actually, so even these two um, what I say, listeners as well. So view results tree and summary report are also the element, are also the child element of this thread group. Because if you just collapse this thread group, all these child elements are collapsed. So these two elements, which are the sampler, and these two elements, which are the listeners, are the child of this parent element, which is thread group. So this thread group is the parent of these child, and these are the child elements of this parent thread group. Again, this thread group is a child element of this parent element test plan. So this is how we refer child and parent elements under this script. So it's a hierarchical kind of things that we will be just looking at. And whatever the child elements we do have under a scope of parent, so whatever things we do apply on parent will get applicable for the child elements. Okay, so in this case, if I run this for 10 users, so all these 10 users will be hitting these two pages. Okay, and if I run it for 1 hour duration, so all these 10 users will be hitting these two pages for 1 hour duration, or 3600 seconds. All right, just a minute. So now I can just save this script, And do remember not to run this script for 10 users, because we are in a just validation phase. So let it for one user, and let it for one iteration itself. Try not to hit any of the public website with the large number of users, because doing that make no sense, because we are not looking at the performance of any of the website. But you should be responsible for a website that you own, or for that you are assigned to do performance tests. So on a practical or on a learning path, we should be using 1, 2, or 3 threads, up to 5 threads we can try, just to look at the behavior of any of the concepts, or looking at the listener and other details. So not to increase the number of users. And I can save this script, so I can put it at any location. Let's say it day1 or day2 underscore thread group dot jmx, or um, overview dot jmx, right? Save it. So for one user, one iteration, I can quickly validate. And now if you look at the view results tree, there are different data presented here. In view results, in summary report, the data is actually summarized, but in view results tree, we get the each page details. But under a performance test, we should majorly looking at the summary report, which gives us the good idea that we have completed 10 iteration of this main page, and there was no such error percentage. Again, this was the average response time and other details. Clear this result and run it again. Thread group message invalid duration 0. Okay, so I think there has been some problem done. Specify thread lifetime, right? So just to disable that, aggregate report, and then run it. Okay, so we have now done 2 pages, main page and contents page. There was no error reported, and you can look at the view results tree for a detail data that what has happened on this contents page. So this is how this content page look like. All right, so this is what all about today's session, and in tomorrow's session we will be just building a performance script or a performance test plan by having a flow. So basically we will be looking at the script creation options, not manually, like here we have created these 2 pages manually under a thread group. And um, so if you have to create a test plan for, let's say, for 10 or 20, 12 pages or 20 pages, which are part of a certain flow, so there are high chances of creating manual errors, and even it's a lot, it takes lots of effort to build scripts manually. Again, it's not a practical approach to do things manually for these kind of scripting. So we have another option which is called recording options that we will look in the next coming session. But apart from that, I would like to have any of the questions we have so far. So there is a question from Savita that how many thread group a test plan can have. You can have multiple thread groups as per your requirement. There is no such limit. But do ensure that these thread group will operate separately. So whatever the things are available inside this thread group will be followed by this thread group only. Again, you can have different things inside this thread group. Again, you can have another different thread groups. So there is no such limit. You can have multiple thread groups, and you can create your test plan as per the requirement. Okay, so Yeah, so in most of the cases we require a single thread group, and under that different pages. But there might be a situation that if you somehow you want to simulate two different um, use cases, like two different areas of application you want to cover, and that makes some difficulty covering those different flows in a single thread group, then definitely you can have two different thread groups, one for just login functionality and one for another functionality like search product kind of thing. So you can simulate uh, that way as well with the help of two different thread groups for different areas of your application. So keeping two or more thread groups make the script simple as well in most of the situation, but it's up to the requirement. Okay, any further question? Okay, please have Nilesh. You have any question? So any programming language we need to know, if you know a basic about Java or JavaScript, that will be fine for this course. So we do not need a very depth knowledge, but a bit on Java would be fine for this course. So about variables and loops and a bit about functions will be enough. Okay, I think we are good. So no further question, and with that, I'm just closing this session, and we'll continue to the next topic, incoming next session. All right, guys. So thank you all. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you in next tomorrow session. Bye.